Handsome. If I pick up the phone or send them a text, hey, can you help me with this? Can you plug this? They're right there.
Yeah.
And you just you were part of a training school, and you just actually your students just got sort of a Zoom lesson through those guys.
So the interesting thing, well, two things are interesting. WWE never gives third-party endorsements where they let their superstars talk about something. So Kofi went to bat for me. It took about a month to make this happen through legal and all that red tape. Finally, I was walking to Market Basket, a couple months ago, and Johnny Ace is on the phone from the office and said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to let you use," and I knew it was coming. That Johnny Ace said, "We're going to let you use Kofi stuff. We're going to do, please don't use it. Don't use his last name. Just use Kofi. Don't put it on. Don't use the hair there." And they didn't have to do that to me.
Right. That's pretty cool.
That's damn cool.
And then Tommaso did a Zoom call for us. Kobe did a Zoom call for us. And I just lined up, and I could see how things go with Coach Bloom and Handsome, depending on how the work schedule plays out, and kind of go from there. So, it's hearing it from not only my voice, but from different perspectives of what other people said.
And those are guys, so I remember watching an interview with Triple H when Finn Balor had just signed, and Triple H was talking about the value of NXT, and Finn Balor, who had been all over the place now, New Japan, traveled America, Ireland, did all of that.
He did our show.
He was our first guest. We were the first interview he had, but he didn't know what one of the cameras were by name.
Cam?
It wasn't Cam. Triple H had a word for it. I forget what it was. But he didn't know that because unless you're in production, you wouldn't know that. But that's something that those guys can teach the kids to have sort of an advantage of.
Right.
I mean, my impression is never been trained, never. You only can't really worry about his eye cam. Because if you're going to say something, you say it that way.
Yep. And the interesting thing from a business standpoint now, if you look at pro wrestling or from a training standpoint or a school standpoint, what a lot of schools I think are missing is that the office.
They're missing you.
The office is now has gone outside the box in terms of hiring independent wrestlers.
Yeah.
So that should be a red flag to trainers. It should be a red flag to trainers because it's saying that we're not happy with what is coming out of the local independent territories in a way where they want you to wrestle the WWE way.
Yeah.
Unequivocally, right? So I kind of hitched my wagon to that mentality way back when CTC and JP and I were heavily involved in trying to get that developmental deal, is understanding those things that were going to separate us from everybody else. And because if you have an opportunity to get in the front door and then survive and now get signed, you want to be coachable, but you also want to have a sense of what they're looking for and how they're going to follow things. Because if not, even if you have bad habits and you can't break those like a bad golf swing,
Right.
they're going to release you.
And they can change their mind.
Yeah.
I remember watching Anthony Green work his way up. I don't know if you're familiar with Anthony.
Yeah. Not well, but I know him.
But from the time he was like 12 years old, he had one goal.
Yeah.
He made it, and he'll make it again. But he was doing every seminar he could, and they were like, all right, so what you got to do if you want to get signed is you got to be a top indie guy. And he got himself there in like no time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then
to the point
they changed their mind on what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a shining spot in there. Still.
Yeah. And one of the things that I try to instill upon the students, and it's funny that you say that, I don't want to develop indie wrestlers. What I want to develop, selfishly, is professional wrestlers that understand all those little dynamics or idiosyncrasies that when you have that opportunity to do well in the afternoon and rolling around in the ring with the A agents, and then they say to you, hey, we're going to send you back with Stephanie to the green room and you're going to cut promos. And you've never cut promos before, and now you're an utter mess. And Vince has a television product that puts people every 18 inches in a seat. And if you can't tell a story verbally, right, but you're gifted physically, now from a business standpoint, you just shut yourself.
You become Edge and Christian.
And his product is putting every person 18 inches, 80,000 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
So you think about that from my perspective, not just from teaching wrestling, but covering that whole gamut of if I'm going to develop a he or a she, it's got to be multifaceted with where it's also character, and and more so your in-ring work is solid.
No.
Because I tell everybody this, I'm not Terry Taylor, I'm not Jim Cornette, I'm not Bruce Pritchard, I'm not Dory Funk, I'm none of those guys. Those guys can put the roof on.
No.
But you gotta start with a foundation. You can't start here.
Right. And you're a guy who a kid trains with you, or your students, men, girls, ladies, train with you, and you. I don't know how familiar you are with the independent products are now, but we were just talking a few minutes ago about. We talked about a couple of promoters in both of them. You're like, oh, my friend, Kenny Kelly, when he ran Everett, Pat Dillon, who runs UFO. Both, I'm great friends with both of them.
Mhm.
That's
Good guys.
yeah, so you still have that reach. If someone wants to get on a show, you train.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. And
Exactly.
and then you move up from there and you learn from there. And
Yeah.
do you have anyone you trained over the years? And I know that's only 5 or 6 people, right? But that you think should have made it that didn't make it?
Who made it? Who
Who should have made it that didn't?
Yeah. Nick Daly, Arch Kincaid. I thought he should have. He was unique and different. And I remember when he first came in, God, trying to teach him how to lock up, and God, he punched me in the face so many times. But wonderful person, good guy. I thought there was a spot for him, and I thought he could have done exceptionally well for himself.
Great character.
Great character. And the other guy that came to my mind is John Walters, Hurricane.
Oh,
John Walters.
yes.
I thought that. He got to Ring of Honor, did a lot of great stuff there. But I always look for him to kind of catapult to get to the next level, and then come out of his shell a little bit. Very, technically sound, fundamentally. I think he was just maybe missing a little ice cream.
He made an all right name for himself on the lucha scene with the RJ Brewer. Yeah, that's the Hurricane was Hurricane. Well, me and Joe actually pushed Sheldon when I fell.
Oh yeah.
We did security. I used to work the door more than security. And George Carroll comes running out and says, "Oh, we're gonna need you to run. We're gonna need you to run out there." George had warned everyone else that the ceiling in the armory was leaking on the ramp, except for me because I was at the door, so I wasn't there for the briefing. I was there for the go run out. To say I went ask over tea kettle, like you saw, like I've never took a bump. I don't know how to take a bump. And George is like, "You just took a perfect bump." My feet were up in the air. You could see them from the hard cam on the other side of the ring, and I was on the ground. And I went down, and that was John and Jason Blade doing a promo that we were trying to break up.
Now to flip the question you just asked about anybody that should have made it. Is anybody that made it that shouldn't have? For one reason or another. I don't want to put somebody on the blacklist or something like that, but I'm just thinking, like, if you pitch everybody perfect, which guy might have been lacking in this or lacking in that? I'm not trying to put somebody on the spot or yourself.
No,
I think everybody's got room to improve, but
yeah.
That's going to lead me to my next question.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. The WWE or any of the promotions during the time with guys and girls were getting signed. It's like anything. Is that at that particular time they were looking for that particular person.
They'll sign you for
Right
a
now,
contract, and then you're out the door.
And then
right now it seems to be the amateur athletes and the college athletes. Next week it might be.
Well, the interesting thing there is that it's none of those guys and girls that they're signing now, to a degree, have no bad habits from the independent scene. So now they're able to get into them like the minor league system or the developmental system. Their slate is clean, right? The first words that they're going to hear from a training and development standpoint are the words from the trainers at the performance center. So think about that, right? So 3 or 4 years with a trainer that might not give you the good advice or good training techniques, so forth and so on. But there was something about that guy or that girl that allowed them to get into the door.
Yeah, that's right.
And then sooner or later, those things are going to start to be exposed. And then they're going to ask you to break those habits. And if you're not capable of doing this and keeping this and then getting out in front of it, it becomes a short marriage.
Yeah, we've all seen that.
It does, right? And, that's why it's so important is to find a reputable school and be a student of the game.
No, outside of New England, because obviously in New England you have your hands in a few of the schools. Outside of New England, what schools would you recommend for people? Like I know Booker T's got Reality Wrestling down in Texas, and
I think Danny Cage. I never visited Danny Cage's school, but I think his reputation at his facility. They've done well. They've got a great track record.
Yeah.
now my buddy Caleb ran New England All-Star Wrestling for a while. He used a lot of Danny Cage. He'd bring up a lot of Danny Cage's kids, and they were all very professional, and they were all well trained and groomed, and
You have to be respected.
So I'll say that. I don't know Danny. I've never
Yeah, a few interactions, but I've never had a
But yeah, he puts out some good product. Puts out good big guy training too.
Yeah.
That's now. Do you follow the product? I mean, obviously, I'm going to assume you watch WrestleMania.
I do. I watch bits and pieces, and I watch from the perspective of not the show. I'm watching in terms of how
I
they're
missed that spot because
and how they're doing things, and how they're transitioning, and how they're setting things up. And just different tidbits, and then taking some of the stuff that we can use as teaching tools to bring it back to school in the video session to kind of help reiterate some of the things that we're talking about from our repositioning, timing, so forth and so on, and how they're working in different scenarios, so things along those lines.
Now, outside of the ring crew stuff that WWE, did you ever did you do like the jobber tour?
Yeah, I did a lot of dark matches. I got to do some house shows. Did some stuff with Al Snow, Bill J, Bradshaw. I mean, I've worked with so many of those guys over the years. Did a lot of the dojo stuff when Freddie Spada was working in conjunction with the office when they were doing the training in Connecticut, and they were doing Bruce and Freddie were working together. So we got an opportunity to work with all the top guys. He was running.
It was actually a cool time.
Yeah.
I didn't wrestling around here because if somebody got hurt, they send them to some of the independent wrestlers here before they come to that.
So really had a great opportunity. Did some great stuff with WWE, on an enhancement standpoint, but then being able to work with other guys on the independent scene as well.
Have you had the invite to go down to be a guest coach at all?
I did once. Went down for a week. Spent a week there. Coach Boone had me down.
That's a pretty cool thing. I know Brian Fury went down.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing that they do because they're not going to grab the trainer that trains for promotion A, B, and C, and puts out their own guys, and that's it, and that's all they show. They're going to grab the best trainers in the country, best trainers in the world, and bring them down there because they want to show their guys different training methods.
Right. I think the thing that was really satisfying to me was that what they were doing there is what we were doing back home. Right. And that really kind of solidified in my mind is that, we're on the right course. We're not doing anything completely off, different than they are. They're really trying to build a foundation. And at the Performance Center, they run the gamut with where they have 5 different coaches from 5 different levels. You start with Bobby Brookside, and then you'll go through the process, and you'll end up with Jim Killer, who's the finish guy. So you're getting a lot of different flavors from the different lot of years of experience.
Sort of the way that I know CCC did it at the time. Like Johnny Vegas in the beginning, and you worked your way up.
Good old Johnny. He and I were able to connect Johnny.
He became a part of
he was working with Next Gen, and he's actually, I just talked to him on the phone today. He's down in Florida, him and his wife. He's retired. And I'll tell you, Johnny and I never crossed paths for years. And then finally, we had an opportunity to connect. And he and I got to work together for a couple months. And it was chemistry. I had a phenomenal time working with great.
I've only met him a few times, but always smiling, always laughing, making everyone around him laugh.
He had a lot of laughs. Back and forth. And I'll give him his due credit. He moves way around the world. And he did a phenomenal job in regards to being able to explain some of the nuances.
It's funny because if you watch one of his matches, he obviously knows the way around the ring, but you wouldn't think he's such a great teacher. Because he's sort of the guy, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
He has a very good delivery. He understands, knows how to pick up on things. He's got a very good sense. And again, I just thought from a compatibility standpoint, because I'm fussy like that, he and I were just a joint at the hip. It was good.
Now, what did you think of Mania?
What I think of it, for me, I thought it was phenomenal, just for the simple fact that it just says a lot with WWE in terms of being able to sell it 2 nights in a row,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Being able to write TV up to that point is a huge challenge,
Yes.
right? Is a huge underlying task
For a live event too.
for a live event. Being able to kind of weave it all together is a
And
challenge.
to put things in the right order and make it all.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's funny because I knew it was a great WrestleMania when I was watching like NXT and they had a ladder match. And I was thinking, they brought me to WrestleMania 10.
Like that's
Like
where
that's where it brought my mind.
Was it that
that
good
good
of a ladder match?
Was it as good as Michael's Razor?
No,
No.
but
But that's where it took my head. So I know it was a great ladder match. And then watching Seth versus Cody. And that took me to WrestleMania 3 and Macho versus Steamboat. Was it that good? Was it as good as Macho Steamboat? Not at all. But that's where it brought my head. So that's how entertained I was. And the whole weekend was sort of set like that.
Not at all, but that's your opinion. You look at, take the vote of all, everyone, it might be up there. It's one of those matches that just like, you're gonna sit there and watch it like,
And then
dumbfounded at what they did.
And Cody wasn't a surprise. Everybody knew for a month or two. It was everywhere that he had signed. And he denied it. So it wasn't like a surprise come out or anything like that. It was just good.
Yeah.
It was fun. Wrestling was fun again.
Yeah.
I love Johnny Knoxville, so I loved the Jackass match. Laughed through the whole thing.
It's
I thought Sami Zayn worked so well. The whole thing that he did.
He perfect.
You know, Sami Zayn tasing himself and then Knoxville coming out. Oh, look, someone forgot to turn it on. You know?
Even just selling that, the giant mousetrap, after it was botched a little bit,
Yeah.
it's still selling it at the end.
Yeah.
You know, that's what wrestling is.
Yeah.
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 It
It's
was great.
improv.
And we didn't body slam with Lake.
Yeah.
How strong is that guy?
We've been taking a pump outside the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's huge.
When you were training with Walter, were you in there with like Jeff Luby and them, or was Jeff before your time?
Jeff.
Jeff Leprechaun.
He was before my time.
Okay.
So my
So
time.
I think Jeff was still in Chinatown, right? Jeff would have been, I think that would have, the Irish Leprechaun would have been when Walter was actually in Boston.
Yeah. So I only knew Walter from being on
Okay.
Pleasant Street in Malden. So I that first experience was in 1992. Going up
Okay.
upstairs on 170 Pleasant Street, hearing those body slams and saying, you know,
Now, who was in that class with you? Do you remember?
oh God, Tony Roy,
Okay.
Chris Duffy, Brian Walsh was there, Richard Burns was there.
Really, Burns was there. I didn't know that Burns was earlier.
His office was there. He was
Okay.
Richard was there around. Yeah, it's outpatient.
Okay.
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Perry Sand and John Cronus were there. Brian Walsh was around.
What a great class.
Triple H was there in '94.
Okay.
94. China.
Yeah.
China. Freight Train Dan. A whole slew.
That's
That's
the class.
that's right around when we would have been there.
Yeah, it was.
Growing up in Southie, I never knew there was a place like
And
that.
it's funny because, like, Mike, I don't know if you ever knew Mike Davis back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
So Mike grew up. Mike grew up with us.
Yeah.
Like, you went to school with Mike. I
Yeah.
grew up. Mike used to come and hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
And Pat Dillon. Like, and I knew Pat had trained, and I knew he was going to Kowalski's, but he didn't. You know, he was there for a little while.
Yeah.
But it's.
Like,
I just didn't know what to do.
growing up in that group, though, mentioning that, like, it's something, we were in like the sports group. But if you mention, oh, I'm doing a pro wrestling training, that's as bad as saying you read comic books.
Yeah.
At that age and at that time, with fandoms and stuff, you know, you couldn't do it. And, like, otherwise, you get beat up, you sneak
Nobody
through
wanted to
the
wrestle.
wire, all that, you know. I wish I knew. I boxed, but being tall, I was much like JP. I was tall and lanky, so I was fighting people older than me that kicked the ever-loving crap out of it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I didn't know anything else afterwards, so I went to the Navy. If
Neither
I knew,
did
I would have.
As big as both of us were,
There
there wasn't between the two of us. I don't think there was an athletic moment.
No, but like I said,
So the coordination would have come.
yeah, but like I said in previous, my older brother, a year older than me, was a great athlete. So by default, I had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made all the teams.
Yeah.
I made all that. I couldn't make a layup if my life depended on it.
Right.
I'm 6'2" in a 15-year-old group. And I couldn't make a layup. You know, I mean, I learned.
We Rich Bash used to take me, because I used to travel. I'd hit the road with Rich and
Yeah.
go down to Jersey and New York just for the road trips because they were always so much fun.
That's
But
for me.
Bash used to always tell me, like, JP, I wish you trained because we would have juiced you up and I would have jumped on your coattails.
Yeah.
And that's what it would have been. I would have been 6'8" and juiced.
And you can look at it too. At the time, if you and I connected about wrestling back then, we could have been a killer tag team.
That's yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Now,
You never know.
do you watch the Indies now at all? Do you follow the independents?
Not much. Not much. I mean, I'm following APW now.
Okay.
Sonny Goodspeed
Yeah.
is the booker there now, and I've been able to connect with him and joining his company, and good conversation back and forth with him, and nice to see
Another
that.
funny guy.
Yeah, very funny. Yeah. Put Vegas and Goodspeed together with
Yeah.
it's chaos.
So he'll come up to me and say hello every time, and then he'll walk away with it. Like, I have no idea who that kid is. And he does, and I know that. I don't expect him to, but he always comes up and says hi. And I always kind of chuckle at it.
No, he's got his hands
I'm going to apologize for the gas coming out of the dog at the moment.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. 3 times on the way here.
I locked the windows on.
But Sonny's doing a good job with the AEW, trying to.
That's a great product, too.
Yeah.
They got that whole area locked down. I did that. I took a ride down there one time with Kyle Storm.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like a pro wrestling story. I loved it because it was the day of DC Dillinger's funeral. And Kyle was like, I'm going to pick you up. I'll take you to the funeral because I lived in Quincy at the time and I was in Malden. I didn't drive. And but you got to go to APW. And I said, cool, I'll go check out a wrestling show after. I'm just going to change your clothes. And we get there, and Kyle's like, I got to do laundry, but we got time, so I'm going to hit a laundromat. And Kyle's like, his clothes at the laundromat, it's like a set of brass knuckles. And it's this. And we're in the middle of Newburyport, which is like a nice town.
Yes.
Like, I can only imagine. And what he's watching was like tights, And seeing this guy watch tights with brass knuckles off to the side of them.
Crazy.
And that's wrestling.
Like with the road stories, you have anything good or bad on the road that's ever happened to you?
Well, not the bad of it.
Well, it's always back to the other guy.
I don't know, we always had a good time on the road. I mean, being on the ring crew was on the road. There was some interesting times there, all over the country. And then, working on the independents, going up to Nova Scotia with Walter and some of the funny stories with him. And, had a couple of vans and, all of us guys together and it was just a bunch of good laughs.
Yeah.
Just, the camaraderie and
Yeah.
good times.
Yep.
Good times.
Yep. It's funny that you go on the road and I always did the New York, New Jersey trips. And you see the same people over and over and they're all, you become friends with them, even though you only see them every couple of months. And it's cool. And that's such the brotherly part of wrestling.
There's a promoter down the Jersey area of Baltimore area, I should say. He's retired now. His name is Jim Kedman.
Oh, yeah.
ECWA. He and I are very good friends. And we did a lot of stuff traveling wise when Chaotic was running and we were
Yes.
running.
They had
changing of talent.
and that's why a lot of the chaotic kids just get down to do the Super 8 every year.
So good times with him and another smart guy.
The only times I've met Kettner was through Joe Bruin.
Oh yeah.
With that, because he'd have Jim come up for the Hall of Fame. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, did you do the Super 8 at some point?
No.
Really?
No, never did. Jim and I just connected through Chaotic, and we still have a great friendship today. We talk on the phone. Boy, he loves to
No,
talk.
he inducted you into the Hall
Yes,
of
he
Fame,
did.
right?
Yeah.
I remember that. That's, I've gone to most of those, so that's
Yeah.
such a. Even when it was just the Hall of Fame before we did the whole convention thing, it was just such a good way to
It is.
sort of recognize
Yeah.
the guys who've entertained you for years.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if I entertain her, but we had fun.
no, absolutely,
Well-
and you're responsible for so many people. Can I drop names?
Sure.
I mean, Kofi.
Kofi.
I'll name the currents.
Okay.
Kofi, Ivar,
Tommaso.
yeah, Tommaso. Josh Briggs, right?
Yeah, Josh and I spent 2 years
Josh
together.
was part of your, all those,
Yeah, stable.
yeah.
And then sent him off to Brian and Fury.
Yeah.
That he would get signed.
Yeah. T-Bar too, right? Or no?
No, Tebow
Was he just chaotic?
He was with the Chaotic. There was Nowinski. There
Yes.
was Chad Wicks. There was Brian Black.
And I don't think there's a stronger hearted person than Nowinski.
Yeah.
Just for the way he stood up for what he wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
You
Chris
know.
is a real gentleman.
That's we had him on years ago. Joe had a brain tumor at one point, so those
Yeah.
two got
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
talk about a
Yeah.
lot of the head stuff.
The way he just came out with like compassion. That's all. It wasn't like, hey, let's talk about. It was compassion. He
Yeah.
spoke compassion.
Yes.
You could sense it.
We went down.
Yeah.
Me and Joe went to WrestleMania 25 down in Houston, and we through this we connected with a few guys who worked for Booker T. So we wound up here security. He did a little convention. Like Nowinski did a speeches part of it, and I said I want to go see that, and they were like, yeah, go take a break and go watch it. The first thing he said was, Vince told me if I went after Chris Benoit's brain, I'd be out of job. And well, I'm here talking to you, because he kept going after it. He knew there was something there. And so that's just how strong-minded he is, and seeing what he's done for even guys like Paul, DCW ref.
Paul Richards?
Yes, he's done a ton. Like Paul Richards,
Yeah.
has made he went through Nowinski and made a complete turnaround.
Oh, nice.
Even the stuff he's done with Perry's Hard.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That just that, and not even the stuff he's done for this person or that person. Look at the legislation he's had
Yes.
passed
Yeah.
in youth sports now,
Yeah.
everything like that. Like, you got to go through concussion protocol
Yeah.
before you start the season.
Yeah.
So it's huge. It's not the reach he's had
Yeah.
into every aspect other than wrestling.
for someone that's just a pro wrestler.
Yeah,
That
you know,
air quotes
I
is-
think that, him really being able to bring that level of awareness in terms of the well-being and the quality
Because
of
it's
life.
so important.
It is so important because, think about it, what, pro wrestling is or any other type of contact sports, after it's all said and done, there is wear and tear. There it is, right? Knowing how to facilitate, knowing how to, care for those guys and those girls, and, unfortunately got hurt. It's, things happen.
Oh, yeah. You can look at the situation with Triple H now.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to stop going in there. Right?
No, but
I know his role in the company has changed, but he still wants to get in the ring. I'm really interested to see how it progresses.
I think he had his moment where he got to go down and actually had a really nice moment and leave his boots in the
Yeah, I
ring.
thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
very nice. He has the same thing as my dad has, and it's one of those things that affect you, and your life changes, but you can continue to go on doing the things you do.
He didn't even make a big deal of it. If you were just listening, you weren't watching the TV, you wouldn't have realized what he did,
Yeah.
And that was cool. And that's the way he wanted it
Yeah,
to. It's not the way he wanted it to end, but it's the way he wanted to end it.
right.
And you look at it from a fan watching that and seeing on your TV, this is what he's saying and doing. So, he wasn't that heel. He wasn't that bad guy the whole time. And there's so many fans out there that don't get the gimmick.
Right. When you think about, to your point is spot on. You think about the number of people that he's been able to influence and help and foster and grow
Everybody.
and just, bring them to a completely different level in terms of their growth and development as in-ring performers and, his ability to see things from a talent standpoint or from a character standpoint or a story standpoint or, putting together finishes of matches and that very intelligent from that standpoint. So his work isn't done. The body of his work will continue to have, all the things you say, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. But, he's still in the driver's seat.
I mean, he hasn't been in ring as a performer since Sting.
Long time.
Was that?
You see him in the ring, but it's because he ripped off his suit jacket and his dress
Yeah.
shirt.
But he didn't really have a match. He'd get in the middle of someone.
And it's like, much like yourself, his footprint's going to be felt years and years to come.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, again, continuing to feed the machine in regards to being able to bring guys and girls along, being able to go out and find, talent throughout not only the country, but throughout the world that will hit the demographic what WWE is looking for, globally. That is, a powerful thing is being able to say, geez, he or she has that distinct look or that in-ring ability or that talent with where it's going to foster and resonate with fans.
No. Is there anyone, I know you said you don't really follow the indies other than APW, but is there anyone that you see out there that you're like, man, I want to get my hands on them? I have somebody in
mind. Not off the top of my head. I can't. There's a couple guys up at Next Gen that I think that are doing well. They've got a ways to go, but there's some there.
Yeah, the Next Gen has only been around for 8 months. Yeah. The one I was thinking was Alec Price. I don't know if you're familiar with Alec. One of those.
Oh, yeah.
They're just so good.
Yeah.
So athletic. Yeah. He came in pretty thin.
Yeah.
But he's put on a few pounds and it's all muscle and stuff. So it's the right, and he had a shot. He had a tryout.
He had a tryout. And the one thing I can say for the guys that like him that are coming up and they're growing and they're doing well is really, maintain with where you're still coachable, you're still finding with where you're looking for that constructive advice. Don't get caught up in the hype of what people are saying. Don't buy into that.
Yeah.
Really find someone that's going to say, listen, so now we're going to talk about a few things and this is what I think you did well. These are some of the things that you need to clean up. Because if no one's doing that for you, and you're not blowing smoke up your family, and keeping you on the straight and narrow, the quality of your work, you have to know what you should be asking the right questions with where, am I going in the right direction from a growth and development standpoint?
And that's the thing. I think we talked earlier. I said I heard the legend of Mike Call when you said, "Oh, hopefully the good too." And yes, mostly good. The bad was you told someone what you thought of their match.
Yeah.
Because if you're not honest with them, you're not helping them. And I tell that all the time because like even in anything in life, if you ask someone and they say everything you're doing is great and they, just blowing smoke up your ass, that doesn't help you get better.
That helps you build bad habits and become into those mistakes when you do get the shot and you do get looked at because you can speak on the mic, but your in-ring is a little bit off because you're getting handed the cake every time.
It was just one of the things way back when that was instilled upon me as I had the opportunity or given the opportunity to teach. And if you're going to be in that role, you have to be honest. And for me, it was never personal, right? It was never with where I was, this or that, or
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite with where I was looking for the best out of he or she to put them in a position with where, there might have been 3 or 4 constructive things that he or she needed to get out in front of to help progress their careers. And some talents, they struggle with that, and they would say, well, who are you? And you're right. Who am I? I'm just a guy that enjoys professional wrestling, right? But just has a keen sense of, what looks right and what we should kind of probably fix, right? And again, I like chocolate, you might like vanilla. But the track record and the history of, trying to do it the right way, speaks for itself. And sometimes, like they said, you just gotta sit back and listen.
Now, you have, and I want to get into this, because I know you have a pretty interesting history with, I don't call them all that I never knew, with Killer Kowalski. As far as from you training to you stepping in and you being the trainer. There's sort of there's a wrestling match in there. There's ups and downs.
How does the torch get passed?
Oh, great question. So probably around 94, Walter was starting to slow down, and I started with him 92, 94. He and I were hot heavy. I was a full-time student. After 6 months, I started to get work with him. And then around 94, he was starting to lean on me more. He was starting to developing a trust in me. And at that time, I was starting to get invited to some of the dojo stuff. I was getting some dark matches, and then being able to pull some of that information back with what was happening in Stanford from a training standpoint, and trying to implement that into the school, but also being very mindful and respectful of Walter. knowing what they were looking for, and trying to bring that type of curriculum back to Walter's facility. So, in all honesty, there were times that he and I would have conversations behind closed doors out of respect to him that, Walter, they're going this way, and we've just got to try to change things up a little bit. Look at he deserves respect, and rightfully so. Great track record, but the business was evolving, and but if it wasn't for Walter, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right.
So.
And you and Walter, this is the history I know as I've heard it through the years. And I think I've actually heard you tell it once or twice in different places. Yeah. There was times when you just didn't talk for years.
Yeah.
And then you'd get back and you'd be.
So,
That's much of you.
And I don't want to, like I said, I told you in the beginning, I don't look for shoots, I don't look for anything bad.
no,
But it's part of the story, and it just shows that, friendship is friendship forever, no matter what.
so Walter and I, like I said, forever grateful. So we were doing well business-wise. We were, things were clicking. And then at the time, I was building a house, had my first child, and I was trying to get Walter to have the school become an LLC, where God forbid if something was to happen, we would be protected. So after about 6 months of going back and forth, and him and I having conversations saying, if things don't get settled by such and such time, we're gonna have to part ways. And so sure enough, that time came, and I ended up leaving Walter. And I had said to him, I'm not going to stop teaching wrestling. And lo and behold, Nesson ran a show on TV with where at the time, Chaotic to run a promotion, but they also run a school. And I didn't know where I was going to be going. I didn't know if I was done. I don't know if Walter was ever going to come around. So I get a phone call, hey, would you be interested in teaching? Sure. So that's CTC came out of Chaotic, and we opened up a school in North Andover in 2001. So, short story, after a little bit of time, I'm home at my house, and the doorbell rings. So that's my door. Walter and Teresa. Can I come in? Sure. So Walter came in, he sat down on the couch, my wife and I, and my son at the time, and he said, can I talk to you? Yeah. He said, I made a mistake. Now think about this. Of course, very proud guy.
Yeah.
He and I always done business on a handshake. Always, right? And he said, I should have listened to you. And I said, okay. And he said, I should have. At that time, his school kind of. At that time, Boston kind of. So we worked out a deal with where he was coming on Saturdays. On Saturdays. We made him part of it.
Right.
His name on people come.
Put his name on the door, and he came. Even though we had our breakout, we still were able to continue on fostering a very strong and healthy relationship. And he passed away. I was involved in his funeral, and so not very many people know the real whole story from a business standpoint because they never really talked about it.
Right.
And not very many
I had
people
heard
know
that. I don't know where I had heard it, but it's somewhere down the road. I had heard that exact story.
Yeah, I was the biggest deal in New England because I was the guy that left Walter high and dry out of school, and I went to the opposition to help run their school. And they wanted to run it as a business, and I wanted to have an affiliation.
Well, that was the one thing with the way Jamie did business was it was never a hobby, it was never a weekend thing, it was always a business.
Always. And Jimmy and I became very fixated with where he wanted to build the promotion, I wanted to build the school. We both wanted to have a relationship with WWE from a training and development standpoint.
He was never afraid to make that phone call either.
Never,
because what are they going to do? Say no? All right.
We sat in Stamford, Connecticut 3 or 4 times in front of the powers to be, pitching our ideas, things that we wanted to do, things that we were aspiring and hoping to accomplish. We had a good little thing going with them. Guys and girls were going on TV. Guys and girls were getting signed. You know, at one point, Jim Ross wanted to set up 5 development territories throughout the United States. You can go up the Northeast being one of those areas, and that was going to be CTC. If it, you know, and the running joke is that when Stephanie and Triple H came to the Chaotic Training Center and saw what we had there, that was the start of the PC.
Okay.
So that
I
was.
mean, that's not far from the
not
truth.
But that was our goal, and that's what we wanted to do. We brought Walter along for the ride, and you know, we had a lot of laughs together.
That's and that's you know, and the chaotic story is just that too, because you look the guys that I know of that came from you came out of chaotic the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it was a
Even like Eddie Edwards,
Yeah.
you had your hands there, right?
No, Eddie was a Kowalski guy, but he was after, so he and I never crossed paths.
Okay.
Nikki Rocks was, you know,
So good.
yeah, she was phenomenal. But no, you know, even the CTC or the Chaotic Legacy still going strong here from 2001 to 2022. I mean, they're still, you know, doing their thing.
I was talking earlier about how professional Eyebrow was.
Yeah.
Nikki was right up there too,
Yeah.
you know.
Except for one show, Nikki brought candy for my kids.
But
No character, candy.
Yeah.
Nikki, like when TNA wanted to do the hair match, she me, and she was always, you know, she wasn't that type of girl. She was always, you know, the nice hair done well and stuff. So I mean, that just speaks out, you know, she'll do anything for the company.
Exactly. Yeah. Nice person.
Yes. Yeah. The one, so Alex Rice, like if you go, this kid, I'm telling you, this kid's going to the moon.
Well, hopefully,
And Bo's doing a great job with him. Like I can't take away from what Bo's turned himself into one of the best trainers around too.
Yeah.
So it's
Bo's a good guy.
yeah.
I haven't come across him in a little while. I know he's over in Beltime, over
Yeah.
in Wakefield. You know, I spent many nights over there. He was gracious enough. I did a lot of training with
Yes.
Josh Briggs early on
Yep.
when I first started working with Josh. But you know, he's got a good little group over there as well. And he's grinding his teeth and finding his way. And you know, that's the big thing, right? Just, you know, teach him right.
That's it. And Bo's made it work because of Bo's not making it work because he's making $1 million doing it. Bo's making it work because he cares about the kids and he cares about the business.
Yes.
You know, the pandemic was hard on him.
If you do it right, the money will come.
And you know, because you're part of it. You're part of
I
schools.
mean, I didn't, you know, and the one thing I'll say is that at this level, you know, we don't do what we do for money.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just a deep passion in giving back and trying to, you know, create a pathway for guys and girls to make their lives easier if they're wise enough to find us, right? I mean, that's really the piece. Because, you know, a couple missteps can really, you know, curtail your career. So I've always looked at this, if you're really in your career, find someone, whether it be Bo, myself, or whoever else may be, that's going to be honest with you. Realize that it's not personal, it's only to make you the best you can be. Those are the decisions that you should be looking at in terms of your development and growth and having a plan. Right? I tell that to guys and girls all the time. You know, if you need to have a plan in this business, you know, 4 quarters, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it may be. Don't go into it working from here down, thinking about what are your weaknesses? And how are you going to conquer them instead of working on the things that you like to do, things that you do well.
Yeah.
That piece. And good trainers, you know, see that type of stuff and focus on that to really make you become that much more well-rounded, both in and out of the ring.
Now, before the current next gen, I'm going to say that either new gen or next gen wrong every time.
Yeah.
Before next gen started up, and you did Hollow Stable.
Yeah.
Hollow Stable, from what I understood, only had a few people. It was just Josh, or it was, you know, what brought you in to do that? Because obviously,
Jamie.
Is that right?
Yeah. You know, I hadn't been, because of work, I hadn't been teaching for a while. And, you know, he just reached out one time and says, you know, hey, what have you been doing? How come you're not teaching? And he said, why don't we sit down and talk about putting together a business plan for you with you kind of like a golf coach or a golf pro. And, you know, one of the things that I kind of always bothered me sometimes is when you have 25, 30 students in a class, it becomes a cattle session.
Yeah.
And I've always said that if a guy or girl is going to get in their car and drive an hour or 2 hours to come see me, when they get back in their car, I wanted them to say that they got something out of that training session And they just weren't a number. My philosophy is that I've always wanted to be in the weeds with the students that are going to allow them to grow and prosper, because we were looking at all the little things. So when someone from the outside that was in the know and knew with what they were looking for in terms of evaluating talent, they would see that the things that they were being asked to do or could do were they fundamentally sound. And that was the premise behind Hollow Stables, where I had 4 students in the training session, and we were really kind of to get into the nuts and bolts of the idiosyncrasies of putting things together from a match standpoint, character development, promo work, in-ring timing, positioning, the fluidity of movements, and all that type of stuff. And it just, I think it just makes it's like having a personal trainer.
That's
Right?
okay.
That isolation and
It makes
I'm
perfect sense.
just, it's just it's not a cattle car of students.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense, because you're right. In the 35 students, you might have 20 different levels.
Yeah.
Of you're here.
Yeah, and now it's funny. You think about trying to build or write a curriculum for a class on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, and I could sit down and I could write one, but I could have 20 different people at 20 different levels, and I sit and then because now it becomes on the fly
Yeah.
and it becomes challenging.
You write the curriculum you think is going to be the best for this class. If the names you see on paper,
Mhm.
but then when you get into the ring and you see who they are, that could be 20 heavyweights.
Yeah.
And you're writing the curriculum for middleweights.
Yeah,
And you're going to switch it all up.
and they're all at different spots.
So
That's aspects of that I never really thought of.
we got Bobby D that tuned in a little late because I hit Facebook a little late. But he asked, and we went over this, so we're just going to go over it quick again.
Sure.
He said, "What was a big name that you coached that made it big in either WWE or AEW?" I mean, obviously Ivar, Kofi, Tommaso,
Yeah.
Tommaso. Like, the crazy part about Tommaso is I didn't love him on the independents.
No.
I didn't. Obviously, he was always a great worker.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the character. I'm 127% a Tommaso fan now.
Yeah.
Like, I love what he's done there. So it's just crazy how it's grabbed me.
It's a phenomenal transformation. You think about it as he started in Chaos as Tommy
Yes,
Show,
membership. Yeah.
and the different roles that he played on the independent scene. And then when he finally had an opportunity to get signed for WWE, and then getting released, basically John Laurinaitis saying to him, you gotta go find your way, go to Europe and go get and go develop, your persona. And then coming back now and getting rehired to be able to do what he's done with NXT, talk about transformation from his character, but his body as well, and the body of his work. And probably the one thing that really sticks and resonates with me, it's his ability with words. It's so compelling with what he does, right? Credibility, believability. It just resonates outside the ring.
Yeah, and that's in his heart. Like he's being rostered now. I think that was made apparent at NXT.
And probably one of the interesting things about talking to him after we did the Zoom call, during the Zoom call, that really stuck with me, that I thought was ever so important. And it's something about him as a person. He said he is kind to everybody. So you think about the amount of people that he comes across. He said, in this business, it needs more good people. He says, I talk to the parking lot attendant, I talk to the people in the cafeteria, I talk to the ring crew people, I talk to everybody. We're all the same.
Yeah.
He says, be kind.
Yeah, and yes, that's a great life lesson.
Absolutely.
Treat everybody as if they're as you want to be treated. I hate to sound cliche, but smile at everybody, say hello. And,
The way I like to look at it and say, look, it's like I'm going to treat every person as if that's my mother or my father.
Yeah.
And like, or because I'm not going to talk to your mother or father any different. I'm not going to talk to your mother or father. That's how I look at it. I'm going to talk to my mother. Things are a little different now as an adult. You get a little more freedom with words, but at the same time, you don't do that in the first interaction.
No.
In most of my dealings with Tommaso on the independents, he was always a heel.
Yeah.
So and then it comes into play. It's like, all right, he was that good of a heel.
Yeah.
He made me and not that I'm smart to anything, but I've been around it, and I understand what the heels are supposed to do, and what the baby faces, the good guys are supposed to do. And he made me not like him.
Yeah.
Like so that's how good he is.
Resonated.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then one of the first times I think I saw him was at one of Pat's shows. And it was him and Joey Eastman.
Okay.
And Joey pitched Pat, said, "Hey, I want to bring Tommaso Ciampa in." And Ciampa, he was sort of a big thing at the time. He was going on the Indies. But I wanted to do a Tyron Feather match. Because Pat always ran on the day before Thanksgiving. And Joey Eastman and Tommaso Ciampa had a Tyron Feather match in South Boston. And it was not bad. It was funny. It was good. I think Joey got hurt.
Really?
But that wasn't, it just happened. I think he just slipped on the tire. And
Crazy.
yeah, but fun. It still shows you that even the best are gonna have fun sometimes.
Exactly.
We get Pat Dillon in the shot right now.
Oh, good old Pat.
Pat says, "What's up?"
What's up, Pat?
And we got Blackheart on. I want to give Blackheart a shout out because he sort of made this happen
Blackheart.
from over the top ropes.
Oh yeah.
So I happened to have just tuned into his the last week or the week before, and I hear him saying, "Have you ever done the Irish Whip podcast?" And I'm thinking, "No, he hasn't. No. Well, we need this to happen." And then me and you looked up pretty shortly after that. So
Pat's saying right now he was concussed and his tooth went through his lip.
that was Joey.
Yeah.
And that, but that was the Tyron Feather match. And he said, Blackheart says, "Where's the Sully'sburg? We'll buy you get you a Sully'sburg at Blackheart. We're gonna meet up and
We'll leave you up there too.
Sully's a little restaurant down the street."
Nice.
Sully's
So
in Castle
awesome.
Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, what's left for you?
You know,
You still want to train? Is there a book in you?
Well, Knuckles Nelson said, you guys know.
Oh yeah, we had Knuckles on.
He mentioned that I should write a book someday. So that's my two trophies that I should write a book. So
absolutely.
that's something that's
Yeah.
Can I pre-order that?
sure. That's something that I'm thinking about. From a teaching standpoint, as of right now, I'm kind of on a hiatus because of my work situation, but you never know where I could end up. I'm going to go back and teach at some point, hopefully sooner than later. I've got a lot of gas left in the tank with where I still want to get back to the business. We'll see with where kind of how things unfold.
I kind of see two books in you. I see a book of you going through the business,
Yeah,
and then I see a book of you teaching.
yeah.
Not like grandstanding, I taught this person, I taught
Right.
that. This like the textbook of how to wrestle.
Yeah.
That's
And I was, I'll share this with you guys. I mean, I was very fortunate early on, from, working with Walter. And then as I alluded to, being around WWF and, meeting a referee by the name of Fred Spada, who's, was very insightful, smart. And then he was good friends with Pat and Louie, who I got to become very good close friends with those guys. So not being an independent, I was an independent guy, but being able to really get some real good, information from the ins and outs and what to do, what not to do, really trying to understand the dynamics of the wrestling business and taking some of those opportunities to teach and put forward to the students was, so beneficial. Really were.
And there's something I think if that was on paper in a textbook or even a small little book you could read on the bus to work, that's something that I think will trigger people that have that. Maybe should I not?
Yeah.
Might give them like, oh well, I can't do that. And if they say I can't do that after reading the sentence in a book, and they're probably not made of this.
And let's be honest. I mean, this business, right? As unique as it is. I mean, I hate to say this, it's not for everybody. It's not.
What business is?
Right. So you talk about having thick skin, hearing no more often than not, right? Being able to ride that wave with where at times you're up and times that you're down, and keeping your ego in check, being able to get your ass chewed when it's.
it sort of cracked me up because there's guys, and there's nothing against them, but the weekend warriors that never had any intention of going past the VFW, but yet they had egos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I get it. You're doing something that I can't do.
And I
And
know
I'm
that
at the game.
after school, you're playing basketball. Don't come up to me with some attitude.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
And my take on that is that, you know, you gotta put the work
yeah.
in. You have to, because it's disrespectful, because the guys that have taken it away, I mean, Walt for 4 years, Walt trying to bring this, the old times was beating the shop. One, they didn't want to come up to their spot, and they wanted to break him. But he had that perseverance with where he wasn't quite too this to one point. He said, I'm going to teach you a few things. And then the rest was history. So, you know, you got to grind. You know, all of a sudden, you don't wake up and you end up on Monday Night Raw or AEW.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't happen that way. I mean, it's years. I mean, Tommaso and I, Kobe a little bit different.
Right.
But, you know, it's years before they're in the pinnacle of their careers.
Yeah.
Kofi was sort of the superstar of having the natural ability to be able to do the athletics that he can, because he was a basketball player before this. In right place, right time.
I mean, there were 5 games in the office on that Saturday afternoon at the game and watched the trial camp at the school. And, you know, it was just, but his in fairness for Kobe, he had said to me way back when, I'm not going to sit in a cubicle at Staples. He's like, I'm going to do that.
Same with
Same with same thing with Noah. And
This is a good question. Blackhead's asking if you watched Tommaso's last match with NXT Saturday.
I haven't, but I'm going to.
Okay, he was asking your thoughts on that. So
Yeah,
it was a pretty emotional ending.
yeah.
Triple H actually came out and hugged him and sort of passed it. To me, that was the pass on the top. That was Triple H publicly saying, "Thank you, you're going on, and it's about time." Because I feel like Tommaso said no
I'm sure.
multiple times. I don't want to know anything that you know, but just because he's been at the top for so long of NXT, and typically that's what they do. You get the belt, you give the belt up, you go on. He gave the belt up and stayed.
I'd rather be the big fish in the small pond than small fish in the big pond.
Yeah. You know, he put his thumbprint like Triple H did on NXT. Helped so many, him and, you know, Joey and Johnny Granjo, excuse me. And hopefully, you know, he ends up, you know, he finds his way up to on the main roster.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see. You think how many people are on the main roster for Raw. Say there's 50 people on the main roster, but you only see 20 of them during Raw. And it's like, do you want to be that guy that's just constantly in the back?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would, because I'm at WWE. But I'm not a worker. If you're a worker, you want to work. You know,
and
the guy that wants to fight.
Right.
And I see him at some point becoming a producer and agent. I can
Yes.
see him becoming a coach at the PC. I mean, there is so much that he would be able to, and all of those guys, right, that we talked about, all of them would be able to, you know, help and influence so many.
You look at the matches that can happen now. You know, like after watching Cody versus Seth, imagine Tommaso versus Cody now, or Tommaso versus Seth. Either way, like those are two great matches. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I could see Tommaso getting one of the belts pretty not, you know, obviously he's not going to put it right on him, but I think he's going to do pretty well there. Like you said, as an agent, because he does know the business. He's been around for a long time.
You know, he's carved this grind his teeth.
People don't realize the Thomas penmanship.
Well, I'll share this story with you. So in 2001, when CTC opened, he didn't wrestle for a year. He was hurt. He came to class every day with a notebook. Think about that.
Yeah.
He came to class every day with a notebook and took notes from what we were doing.
Injured, so he's not being able to work.
He was sitting in the other ring, and
Who's got that drive?
And you think about psychologically, he wasn't working. He was taking notes, but he was in the ring.
But he was in the ring.
Still in the ring doing it, but he was writing it down instead of don't take the bump.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's huge. So a lot of people don't know that. That's, you know, that says a lot right there.
This is one of the first we've had on the show.
What's that?
No one's done that.
No, I never heard that story.
We had a couple of first times on the show come out. We had Chris Canyon on.
Chris Canyon.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes.
we had him years ago, right before he really came out with his mental health and that he was gay and all that stuff. You know, it's just a show. Like,
Yeah, we enjoyed different moves at the time. Like we were in different places.
and we did it all on the internet.
So we had no, and there was no like
Or
text
dial-up.
messaging was on, an old phone,
Yeah, it had one.
it wasn't smartphones.
Yeah.
So like we couldn't even text message each other. Like how do we get this
Yeah,
one moment here?
Yeah,
And then he came on Howard Stern like literally 2 days later.
Yeah. But and things like that. And then the first
But the
Yeah.
Tommaso, that's a cool story. That's
for
and to any students of professional wrestling that are listening now, that is what you do. Whether you're hurt or not, you show up to class. I've never once gone to class without a notebook.
Well, here's another little
It's
interesting
class.
tidbit for you. So the week,
Oh, it was never full.
I took your notebook.
here's another interesting one for you. So the week that I was at the PC, I was in a skull session with Matt Bloom and the talent. And, we were in the room, and he said before peak review started, he said, "Guys, girls, does everybody have their notebooks?" Not everybody had a notebook. Before you start this class, you got to go get your notebooks, because there's a lot of information that want to be passed along in this class that you might want to be able to write down.
Yeah.
So all the students that I interact with now, even started at CTC, everybody kept notebooks, because there's so much information that is being put forth in a 2-hour, 3-hour training session that only 20% is going to be from a retention standpoint that you're going to be able to remember. Take your notes, write it down, so when you're sitting down, you can go back and look and talk about the stuff discussed.
You obviously can't take over the ring. You're not in the ring for what you are,
Right.
because there's so many people in the class. So you should be taking note of what other people are doing different than you. And
And he still has this from 98.
I'll tell you, Pat, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him.
it's all scribbles though.
Yeah. It's probably full of grease from it. Taking cheese.
But Mike, we've been going for an hour. I feel like there's another hour
You
here.
know, going.
Yeah. Let's go. So let's kick us off. I got another question for you. And this is pertinent to the end if you want to be.
Yeah.
Who do you want to pass the torch to?
Ooh,
Who
that is a final question.
who is up there that you think that you train? Because they're going to come back.
Yeah.
That you want to pass the torch to.
From a teaching standpoint,
From a purely they can teach. You think that they can do what you do. You taught them so well. They can do what you do.
Or even someone you didn't teach, which is
Yeah.
who you did the next steps to progress the students.
oh God.
And at the same time, that could be multiple people. You can say if this person comes in, they can do this part of it. You know.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It really is. No one really comes to mind right now, because it's just me and like I talked about earlier, the gentleman that I was working with, Johnny Vegas, he and I really kind of hit it off really well for the 6 months that we were able to spend together. But for me personally, I just think it's so important for the guys and girls that are really trying to grind their teeth and find their way in this business today, and that have aspirations, whether it's to work on the independents or to evolve to the larger promotions, is don't look at it selfishly from the development standpoint. Find a facility or a trainer, whether it's me or anyone else in New England that's teaching, that's going to be honest and forthright and realize as a student of the game, as you're in your learning journey, that it's not personal, is that we're pushing and we're testing and we're challenging you. Because if you think it's difficult at this level from a training standpoint, what are you going to do when you walk through the curtain and there's Vince waiting for you, or Triple H, or one of the agents, and that they're going to give you an earful? So, prepare yourself for that type of stuff with where, it's the big leagues. It's the big leagues. It's like playing under Coach Belichick, right? As great as Tom Brady was, he pushed so much to continue to find greatness. And it's the same thing in professional wrestling. If you're in it just to do what you do, that's fine. But that's where it's going to end. But if you want to evolve to more, find that person with where they're going to really take you along for a ride and put you in a place with where you can have career success. And that might mean you might not make it professional wrestling, but when you go into the outside world, the society as a professional, you'll have a really good keen sense of what Hollow Stables or next school, wherever I might be at, is going to allow you to have that understanding as a professional that's going to make you vastly different from the next guy or girl.
Okay.
And you'll be the one with the notebook.
That's it. So if you show up for class, have your notebook.
Yeah, I mean, just be prepared. I mean, even they laugh about Belichick. If you went to one of his film studies, if you didn't have your notebook, shit hit the fan.
Yeah. Now, have you had students come and say, "Oh, I don't have a recording in it"?
No,
In today's day and age.
I've had students. I'd ask them. I says, "Where's your notebook?" It's in the front seat of my car. I says, "I'm not teaching in your car. I'm teaching here."
Yeah.
And the recording's a no-no, right?
Yeah.
Audio recording
Yeah,
is
yeah,
probably all
yeah,
right, but
yeah. So.
video recording in class,
so.
fourth wall.
There you go.
No, Mike, thank you so much. Blackout, thank you for helping this happen.
It would have happened without him.
It would have, eventually. You're one I was afraid to approach.
Why?
Because of
That's an
the,
interesting question. Why would you? I'm just out of
well,
curiosity.
just because you're like your person, your
I like this.
the legend of you is like larger than life. Like you've trained everybody I know that entertains me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
You
like
know,
a regular Joe. That's just.
Well, and that's what, like, you see these wrestlers nowadays. A lot of them have to keep that character going.
And
If
you
they get
also-
approached by a fan,
Yeah.
but
up
like,
until recently, you didn't do a whole lot of talk.
No, and I think, there are. So, my kids say this to me. There are two of me, right? There's me when I'm teaching,
Mhm.
and then there's me when I'm me, right?
Yeah.
And that's a different personality.
his dad and his mom.
His dad, this Mike. And when I walk into a wrestling school, because it's not my right to be at that school. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's my
That's-
privilege
Right.
Yeah.
that someone came before me that's allowing me to do what I do. That someone paved the way for me to allow me to get in that ring, and along that journey gave me vast amounts of information and good information to pass along to others that wanted to use these to put themselves out to be in a better position.
I love it.
Think about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my right to be there. Someone else created that opportunity for me.
That's
That's huge.
yeah, and that's so.
And
That's
that's the thing
the
people don't get
humility
these
people need
days.
to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like getting back to Dillinger, like at indie events. He had that humility. My son, who's now
Yeah,
21, scared the crap out of my son with his character. You know,
Yeah.
moved to the top, like you see him with
Was that
with
the other one?
a
Did you
top
cross?
hat and a cigar in the older days. That's the character he was
Did
training.
you cross
But
the
you
training with these two?
A little bit. He was at Kowalski's, and
Yeah,
and then
yeah. Dave was one to do his own thing. Like, I had a great relationship with Dave.
Yeah.
I was one for whatever reason he liked me. I think it was because I drank beer.
Oh, and-
Like yeah,
Mid-match, he comes over the barrier right where my son is, was afraid of him. Kind of gets on him. I was like, "Don't worry, man. This is all an act." And the son's like 7.
yeah.
My son was like, "Oh, okay." And
Yeah.
he broke it, but when no one knew. You know, I didn't know till after.
Right.
You know, and that's something like you see that now every now and then. When that kid is
Yeah.
crying, that kid's got hurt. They'll come over and take a bump right there and be like, "Hey, buddy, I'm okay." You know, and it's kind of that's like you said, the fourth wall, but you're not breaking it. You're kind of just pushing it in a little, so it'll come back. And it's something that will keep that kid a fan forever.
I want to end in saying this is I know your work schedule, but if there was someone who wanted to train that could work on your work schedule, this Hollow Stable.
Yeah, I would find a way to make it work. I would, right? And
Yeah, I love that you're passionate about training the way a lot of wrestlers are passionate about wrestling.
yeah,
Like, and
I
that's,
agree with love, tremendous love.
that's so
Yeah.
cool. And I don't think, because you think the trainers and you think the grizzled vets, and you're not that, and that's,
No.
You think trainers, you think
and I'm
wrestlers.
sure some of the kids you train think you are that grizzled vet. They've had the teacher, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they realize as they grew and they matured and they got older that someone was me or whoever it may be. As you've learned about Triple H with how he's impacted so many of the towns
Yeah.
at this level here, that was again being blessed with a lot of great information along the ways that kind of help those guys and girls
Yeah.
know that want to listen.
That's Mike. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for doing that.
Very good.
So, but with that, is there some way someone can, is there, you have a way to reach you?
Yeah,
You want-
reach me at hollowstables.net. That's my website. You can find me through Facebook. Any type of social media, you can track me down. If you guys know people that are looking, I will teach again. That will.
And one time, I think I can speak to JP, it's like, we don't want to train at this point, but we'd love to sit in.
Yeah.
If you're allowed, if that's allowed, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
I'd
Yeah,
love to sit in and just see how it is.
yeah, absolutely. I think there'd be a lot of. I've had some people that work with me in my regular job come see me. They see me in my work environment, and then they come see me in that type of environment. They're like, "Geez, there's another side of you." And so, yeah, absolutely.
I've sat in on a couple, like when Matt and Kyle had their little school
Yeah.
going, and I've sat in on some of both, so I want to see the difference.
Yeah.
I just want to see it. I've never,
Yeah.
never seen it.
No, it's interesting. It's fascinating. And you kind of really get a real true appreciation of, when you're watching a match on TV and how things come together and how things should look and why things look the way that they do and how we get there and how we clean things up. Because here's the other part, right? With the thing that's really interesting about professional wrestling that's vastly different from Hollywood. Producer could say, cut. When I was in front of 20,000 people, or they're in front of 80,000 people at WrestleMania, think about this. You can't stop.
No,
You can't edit the
So-
voice.
You can't stop that.
everybody that said to me the Chris Rock Will Smith thing was fake. I
Yeah.
said, "There's no way," because those guys, and it was mostly pro wrestlers.
Yeah.
I
I
said, "There's
thought
no
he
way."
leaned into him.
He
I
definitely- so-
thought Chris Rock fit into the Will.
I think Chris Rock fed it thinking nothing was going to happen though. Like Chris Rock tried to stand his, I want to say unintimidating as possible. His hands were behind his back, his face was out like this, but you don't expect Will Smith to do that.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it wasn't fake was just what you just said. Hollywood throws a punch. So every punch Will Smith's opponent is life has been probably 3 feet away.
It's all angles.
You guys don't rely on angles.
No.
You guys rely on the fake being there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
I think I got one of the next students,
Oh, great.
my son.
Oh, there you go.
that's
Excellent.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know, well, because he's at school and he's going in like theater and
Yeah.
things like that, and like improv. I'm like, well, you always want to be a trainer, it's improv.
Have you guys looked at my website at all?
I have.
I looked tonight,
HollowStables.net. A lot of good stuff on there. I'm trying to
Facebook page as well.
Yeah, Facebook is Hollow Stables. I think, yeah.
yes, I'm on. I think I'm on with you.
JP, I can send you,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
send that so you can see that. So good stuff there. But guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mike, you're welcome here anytime.
Yeah,
Hope you have fun. That's our goal.
I had a blast. It's always good to talk about pro wrestling, the ins and outs, behind the scenes stuff. And I think it's great that you guys created a platform for guys to be able to come in and talk about it. You do it right, which is the other good thing.
We're not out to piss somebody off, we're not out to like,
I tell trainers if you want to, because we did a lot with Chikara was there.
Yeah.
A lot of the Chikara guys would come on in character. A few of the heels actually lost their Twitter like 3 or 4 times, but threatening my life.
yeah.
And, me and him would be messaging the whole time. Chikara's not around, so we kind of exposed that a little bit. But like, his Twitter would get banned because of something he said to me.
Right.
Yeah.
But so if you want to have your students come in and even practice their characters,
Yeah.
and come in here and do
I'll
it.
reach out to a few of them before they can see the guys who, sit
Yeah.
down for an hour and
Yeah.
go through the paces. And I think any little stuff like this is ever so grateful.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I will say, we'll have anybody on. If you, oh, I trained for one day, okay, sit here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
So, how can I find this? Because I'm gonna push the hell out of it as well. You guys are gonna go,
Yes.
are you gonna edit it or what? How do you?
I don't do much editing, especially during interviews, because I don't want to cut. What I do is I throw our intro song on and a couple of ads.
Yeah, he puts the ads in over there.
Yeah.
Because I know somebody asked me, said, hey, Mike, how can I? So if you wanna send me a link,
Yes.
that way I can push it.
Yep, 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 yep.
Social media pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Good, good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
All right, see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Use meeting.